I've had my iPhone 14 Pro Max since the day it came out, but I've just noticed that actually I've done barely any videos on the channel about the iPhone 14 Pro Max. So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to take it back to basics, and what I'm going to do is just show you what is on my iPhone and exactly how I have the iPhone 14 Pro Max set up. Since getting this 14 Pro Max a couple of months ago, I've kind of changed it around with how it looks, and I'm one of these people that like to change my wallpaper around all the time. So actually how my iPhone home screen looks changes every couple of months, but at the moment, the way I've got it, I think is pretty perfect, especially for me, and it stops me just messing around on other apps, and it is pretty much set up perfectly. We'll go straight into it and have a look at that main screen. So I just have one screen on the iPhone. I don't like to have loads of different pages of apps, and in fact, I don't really like to have a lot of apps on my phone at all, and I've tried to get rid of as many apps as possible. I'm still in that process of just deleting things that I don't need or use anymore. But on the home screen, you'll see that I've got apps in the top right corner and then 2 rows at the bottom as well, and in between that is just Clear Spaces, and this is a really good app. This app is called Clear Spaces, and it is probably one of my favorite apps I have on my phone. It just lets you have those gaps in between on your homepage, so you can make it look a little bit more refined and a little bit more customizable. So what I've got here is those 2 spaces separating my 2 lots of apps. You can place these anywhere on that home screen as well, so you can have it completely blank if you wanted, but I have one clear one right in the middle which has nothing on it, and then in that top left corner I've got another one, but it's one of those smart stacks. So what I'll do is I'll swipe down so I can just see something like the weather whenever I want to see it. So what I can do is just swipe it away when I don't want to see it, and it makes that screen look really nice and neat again. There's a reason as well that I've split those apps into kind of like 2 separate areas. So that top right corner of apps are the like social media apps and things that I can spend hours on and just get lost and lose my entire day, and those bottom apps are things that I would tend to use on a day-to-day basis, which I won't get lost in because they're things just like email or camera and settings and things that you might just need. I found that separating the apps to that top corner and bottom row is good for productivity, because it means it's a bit harder for me just to go and click on Instagram or TikTok, and having that in the top corner makes me not go on it. It's weird, but honestly it kind of really works. That wallpaper as well is from Canopy, and it's one of these things that is really simple and nice and gives the phone a really clear look. I also use just a lot of those stock apps as well on iPhones, so the one thing that I like is that I can go onto my music and I can have that kind of move across between my iPad and my Mac as well without having to think about it. Podcast is something that I listen a lot to, so every night when I go to sleep, I'm one of these people that can't just lie there and fall asleep. It takes me ages, so I always have to listen to a podcast, and I just use that default podcast app. And I know it's not the best podcast app in the world, but it is nice and simple, and it means I don't really have to think about anything. It's just there and ready for me to use. The one thing that is missing from that home screen is something that a lot of YouTubers have, which is that they have that YouTube Studio app. But I found that using that YouTube Studio app is a little bit depressing. It's the first thing I would look at when I woke up. It's the thing I would look at during the day. It's the thing I would look at before I went to bed. And it irritated me because if videos weren't doing really well, then it would put me in a really bad mood for that entire day, and I'd always be in that bad mood. So I deleted it from my phone, and I don't use that YouTube Studio app anymore. I just have gone back to making videos, and if they do well, that they do well, and if they don't, then they don't. But I just kind of don't like having to use that YouTube Studio app anymore, so it is gone. There are a few other apps as well that I use that obviously aren't Apple apps. So Adobe Lightroom is one of the apps that I'm trying to get into a little bit more. I'm starting to take a lot of my photos that I take in RAW, so I just went on a trip to India, and all the photos that I took in India were on RAW, so I want to go back and kind of learn how to edit those in Adobe Lightroom, and I'm not very good at it yet, but it's something that I like to use, and I'm trying to learn a little bit more. There's a really good football or soccer app as well that I use, and it is called FotMob, and this allows me to have a look at league tables and all the other teams and see how well they're doing. So I'm a Liverpool fan, and we're not doing very well at the moment, so I'm trying to not use the app at all, but it's really good. It gives you live activities on that home screen as well. It gives you push notifications, and it's just a really nice, simple app to use. You can star teams and you can follow them as well, so you get notifications when they're playing, and you can see the scores, live score update. So this is a really good app. It's my favorite football app out of all the ones that I've used. Another app that I use quite a lot is now that I can drive, which I've just learned to drive. I don't know where any of the parking spaces are in the world, and I hate paying for parking. So So I use an app called Parkopedia, which if you put in the postcode of where you're going, it'll show you all the parking spaces available like in that area. So it'll show you street parking, it will show you expensive parking, it will show you all of it. So this is one of those apps that's come in really handy for me, because as a new driver, the one thing that I don't ever want to do is pay for parking. And so far, like 9 months in, I've not had to pay for parking once. So Parkopedia is saving me tons of money. But like I mentioned, I try and use my phone as little as possible now. I used to have loads of apps on it and rubbish games that were just sat there taking up storage space, but I kind of delete stuff now. Like if I don't want to use it, it's not on my phone. I use the other apps as well, things like Uber and Uber Eats and Deliveroo. I use them quite a bit, but they're apps that I'm trying to use less and less. I just think I spend a lot of time on my phone and I don't need to, where I could be creating content or I could be doing something a little bit more fun. So if there's apps on my phone that I go through maybe once a week, I try and delete as many apps as humanly possible to get rid of them all. One thing that I do like to do on my phone though is I use the focus mode all the time. So it's like do not disturb, it's personal focus mode, it's whatever you want to call it on your phone really. And what I have mine for is I make sure that everything on my phone is gone, so all blacked out, no apps or anything. So if I wake up early like in the morning and I've got an hour or two to go back to sleep, let's go back to sleep rather than going on my phone and just deciding to go on TikTok for 2 hours and just ruin my life. So what I do is I turn it on that personal mode. My home screen goes completely black with no apps at all, and then the same for that lock screen as well. I have nothing on it at all. With my lock screen as well, I try and keep it as minimal as possible. Sometimes I'll have some like widgets on there, whether that might be the Apple Watch widget just to tell me the battery life on that, or maybe activities, but at the moment I don't have anything. I have nothing on there, just trying to keep it as smooth, as minimal as possible. And then finally, most of the time the way I find any apps that I want, I always use that spotlight search. I don't ever go really into that app library. Like I don't remember the last time I went into it. I always just use that spotlight search for whatever I want, and then go straight into the app there. But most of the apps that I have anyway on my phone on that home screen are just on that one page. I tend to not use any other apps. The other app that I like to use quite often is Google Maps. So Google Maps is really good when you go to a new place. So like I said, I went to India the past couple of weeks and Apple Maps was really bad. It was really rubbish. So I didn't use it at all. I had to default to using Google Maps. And even though I said that there's no games on this phone, there is one game that I will play when I'm really bored, and that is The Chase. So I don't know if you've ever heard of The Chase. It's a TV show where it's like a general knowledge based quiz program, and I bought this app maybe like 2 years ago for about £1.70, and I use this one all the time. So it's on my iPad and it's on my iPhone, because sometimes it's just nice to kill a bit of time, and the game's quite long, so one game on that can take maybe 25 minutes. So that's 25 minutes killed if you're sat in the back of the car, or you're on the train, or you're on the plane. So if you haven't used it, go and download The Chase. It's actually really fun. And that is it. That is what is on my iPhone 14 Pro Max. That's how I set it up. It's how I use it. And I know that I don't use that phone as well as some people probably do. And I don't use all these fancy like video editing apps or video taking apps or anything like that. I try and keep it as minimal as possible now, because I feel like that I spent so much time on my phone. I waste so much time. It's ridiculous. If you enjoyed the video, let me know in the comments of what you think of my home screen, whether you think it's good or whether you think it's like a little bit naff. Subscribe to the channel, like the video as well, and if you do all of that, then I will see you later.